Welcome back to the Guardian Project podcast. This is episode 164, and I'm your host, Andy, here to request that moving forward, we all refer to people that like NASCAR as a Speedway fanatic.
I like
this
that.
is also applicable to people that like Speedway, the gas stations, because their Speedy Freezes are far superior to Slurpees.
Yeah, you know, I saw, were we on like the way back from some, was it Command Fest or maybe from Wisconsin? And we saw a Speedway that actually had Slurpees in it.
I was blown away. I was like, this is not right. This is not right. Because they have a different consistency, and I feel like Slurpees melt faster, and then you're left with that like flavorless chunk of ice. Speedy Freezes are not like that.
It reminds me of snow cones, my least favorite ice-based treat.
Oh, those are terrible.
And I'm your other host, Mike. And did you know that Vraska is a piano player?
No.
Oh, sorry, Gorgons. I always get those two mixed up.
Please listen carefully.
And this is the podcast about Commander.
Our favorite Magic the Gathering format.
So I got to go to Gen Con this past weekend.
Oh, nice.
That was a lot of fun. I will say, I wish we had as many people coming to play Magic at the Command Fests as there were at Gen Con.
Whoa.
It's probably easier to get people to go to Gen Con, I'll be honest.
Okay. Interesting.
For Magic, because there was way more space, but for people like me who go for the 4 days, on the third day, we go for board games, right? So we go for board games. We played some new games. We bought a bunch of stuff, but on day 3, I was ready to do something different. So, my husband went and played D&D at some scheduled events, and then I just went and played Magic and found a bunch of creator friends. I got to see Claby, friend of the show, EK, friend of the show, just lots of people, and I hung out and played Commander. I did a scavenger hunt that day, but there were hundreds of people playing Magic at Gen Con, and I feel like when we were at Command Fest, it was like half full because there wasn't other things drawing people there other than just Commander. And it felt nice, I will say, being at a convention center that had a ton of free space and also just a ton of people just free playing.
That's fun. Did you have any like super memorable moments in any of those Commander games, like stuff that you wrote down in your notes for your
I actually wrote down, so there was a Gen Con exclusive event to go find Fibblethip, which was really funny because Manicurs, Chase, sent a message to EK because they weren't there and said, hey, Gavin Verhey said, find Fibblethip and come find me, and you get free sleeves in a deck box. So all three of us scooped out of our game, ran to find the Fibblethip, and then ran to the booth Gavin Verhey was at, and we got free swag. We got one of those really cool, I think they're called alcoves. Are they alcoves? Is that what those Ultra Pro deck boxes are? I might be making it up.
I don't know.
But it's the deck box that's like magnetic, and it has like a trifold so that you just open it up and you can grab your cards out of it. So I got that with the Fibblethip Secret Lair art on it. So the like the Where's Waldo, but with Fibblethip. And then I bought just some artist proofs. I actually did not go expecting to buy any, but I found some cards that I liked, things that I could put in the cube. I had every intention of planning to pull a bunch of cards that have signed.
Sure.
But I just kind of ran out of time, and there were like 20 Magic artists there, and I just ran out of time to try to find them. So if they had cards that I knew for a fact that I ran, like I got an Aki Battle Squad artist proof from Steve Prescott, and then I got a Precinct Captain also from Steve Prescott, and then I got the Gray Merchant of Asphodel, the Theros Beyond Death new artwork, but the promo from like I don't know if it was a bundle, I don't know what it was, but I got that in foil, and it was the last one, and I was actually kind of glad that I got in there when I did, because somebody was standing right next to me and was like, can I look at this? And I was like, sure, but I'm gonna purchase this, and they were like, oh, okay, and then they got the non-foil one. Oh my god, I did this one. I did, because I was very worried about that. But Gen Con was fun. I will say it was like, for me, mostly board games and seeing friends that I don't get to see very often. And then the other half was Magic. I think I like splitting it up in half because I can do things that I don't get to do throughout the year, which is find time with people to actually play board games, because I know how difficult it is just to find people to play Magic, and that I can do online easily. So finding people in person. But overall, Gen Con was fun. Spent too much money, but we did Airbnb it this time because it is a lottery to get to a hotel, and we did not have a good time slot to try to find a hotel.
Well, didn't win that lottery. Didn't win the $1 billion lottery that happened a couple weeks ago.
Oh my! And I actually played. I do not gamble, and the only time I do it is when someone goes, "Hey, are you playing the lottery tonight?" It's like $1 billion. And it's like, oh, I guess I will spend $10. I should not do it. But if you don't play, you don't win. But I don't play. Like, I don't really play. I didn't win that. So,
well, the next time you're in a pod with Andy and he casts the card gamble, just make sure to call him a liar, and you gamble all the time.
Yes, exactly. Just like in real life, you put $10 into the bin.
That's right. You entomb your $10.
You entomb your $10.
All right. Well, speaking of things that might be a little expensive, there's also we finally got details about Magic 30 in Vegas.
Yes,
which is taking place October 28th to October 30th. And maybe it's misleading to say it's expensive because there are some very affordable packages here, but we do have a bunch of ticket packages now available, details on what you can get. There are very few details that are still unknown on here. Maybe some stuff that will get released the week of, or there is still definitely 3 months. It's occurring at the end of October. But some very cool promotional cards that are going to be available in most of the packages here. An Arcane Signet, a Richard Garfield PhD, and a Soul Ring. The Soul Ring artwork that we do see at the Command Fest that we've gotten over the past couple of, not past couple of years, right?
No, it has
4
been.
years.
Couple is 2. So when did we go to Command Fest? Or when Command Fest Chicago was 2019. So this was the same promo.
Okay, so 3.
So it's been a few years because a few is 3.
Okay, a few.
What is 4? Many?
Quad.
Single, a couple, a few, and then more than a few.
Lots.
We're just gonna look more than a few. So we're almost at more than a few years with the same Soul Ring promo, but it is the same. This is the same promo for the last 3 years.
Yes. So packages are available: single day packages, weekend packages, various levels of VIP packages, going all the way up to a Crimson package, or a Black Lotus package, which gives you a complimentary entry to a Crimson Anniversary Night Party, which is the 1-year anniversary of Edgar Markov and Olivia Voldarian's wedding.
I love that. And it's happening the night before. I assume it's happening the night before Halloween. So if it goes over midnight, then it would be October 31st, which is Halloween.
Yeah, be very fun. You do have to.
I can't believe it's been a year since that happened. I can't believe it's already coming up on. We're coming into fall.
Yeah, we are. Oh, don't.
It's not hot
don't
out
depress
anymore.
me.
It's wonderful.
But the summer is so nice. I want summer for half of the year, not just 2 months. Maybe it's been 3 months.
Listen, we don't get winter for very long anymore either. We just get cold. Winter should have some snow. We mostly get, I feel like spring is like the long one now.
Yeah, we get winter where it's just really cold stuff, but nothing is snow covered permanents here in Michigan.
No snow covered permanents.
Unless you're in
but
the
there's
UP.
also some cool add-ons. There's some playmats here that you can pick up. There's deck boxes. There's going to be an exclusive backpack. There's a new secret layer that comes out at this event. The Lil Geary saves the day, and it says, help the brave food fighter Lil Geary save the day in these 5 adorable cards. There's a Peak, Greed, Curiosity, Vandal Blast, and Last Chance. And all of them are the cutest little artworks.
They're very cute. Lil Geary knocks out of the park.
Yeah, so you can get this if you're at the event, depending on your package, but you can also do this if you pick up the Festival in a Box Magic 30 package. So that package is $269. It gets you various promos. It gets you the same promos that we talked about before. Both of the Neon Dynasty Commander decks, a Mystery Booster Convention Edition booster box, some sleeves, a deck box. So if you can't make the event, like we can't make the event, and you do want to get some of these promos, and maybe you want to get some before you pick up singles, or maybe you are interested in some of the extra things. You can pick up a Festival in a Box, which also gets you some things like a virtual Q&A with Richard Garfield and another one with Mark Rosewater. You can get an MTG Arena avatar. Looks like there's going to be pins and hats and t-shirts and a lot of things that you can get for this event. So it was interesting to see all this come up, and this all came out today. This is like breaking news because we didn't know about this. Like, I think we learned about a lot of this like 6 hours ago. Yeah. So, we were not sure if we were going to know much about that anytime soon. But we still don't know much about the February event that's happening in Charlotte. Yeah. So more to come on that. But before we continue, we have some people that we have to thank. Everybody who's listening and listens to us every single week, especially our patrons. Thank you so much for listening. We can't do this without you, and we appreciate everything that you do for us. And if you are not a supporter and you want some cool swag, you can head over to patreon.com/guardianprojectpod and donate for any dollar amount.
And you can find us online on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, or hop on over to Google and search Guardian Project Podcast. You'll find us and our website, and you can email us at guardianprojectpod@gmail.com.
I have a question for you. When you go to the internet, do you go to Google, or do you just type into whatever browser you're in because it just Googles?
I mean, Google is my homepage. And
is Google your homepage?
Google's my homepage, and Firefox. So I use Firefox. I don't use Google Chrome, but Firefox is also set up to use Google if you just type in something that isn't addressed in the search bar. I'm not sure if anyone out there uses Edge. I imagine there's a dozen of you, but
literal dozen.
I imagine Microsoft has their own search engine that it would force you to use if you did that. But
Bing.
Yeah, is Bing owned by Microsoft? Maybe
I don't know who owns Bing, but I've looked up our show on Bing, and we've got high results there too.
There
so
we go.
I don't know.
So you could use Bing and
Bing us. Bing us.
Everyone who uses Bing only uses Bing because Bing actually gives you rewards for searching things if you set up a Bing account.
I will say in college though, I used Bing because Bing has a very easy way to pull images for projects that are that have like license free and like Creative Commons images, and it tells you which one they are, and you can actually do that in a search setting. So when you are looking to make a presentation, you need like generic business photo. You're not taking a copyright photo and putting it into a presentation you're going to turn into a school that's going to run it through.
That's pretty nice.
You know, a website checker to make sure you're not breaking the rules. But as I digress, you can find us on the internet, anywhere you look. Maybe not anywhere, but lots of places. We are, if you're there, we're there.
Yeah.
Mike, what are we talking about this week?
We got our annual article here from Mark Rosewater on the state of design for 2022. So we are going to go over the past year of Magic sets and talk about highlights, lowlights, and some things that we gleaned from them.
All right, let's go check it out. Magic state of design. So we've done this, I think we did this every year. I like talking about these sets because it's nice to hear feedback on what they learned that people did and did not like. And I will say, when I read through this one, I agreed with most of it. So I'm excited to break this down. So let's start with the overall Magic design for last year and how that resonated with the player base. The highlights. The first one here is we push the boundaries on what Magic can do. He says, if you had asked me 10 years ago if we did some things that we did this year, I would have said no. No way. We definitely wouldn't have. One of the things that excited him the most about his job is that it's always changing and never boring, and there's always an endless supply of new challenges to take on. The key, though, is that they have to be smart on how they do this, and they think that research and design, R&D, is mostly doing it right.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely been blown away, I guess, by some of the new mechanics and things that they've brought out and how well that they work together or work in multiple formats, right? It's a big challenge when you look at a standard set that works both in draft and standard and modern and then our eternal format of Commander that's so difficult to design for.
Yep. No disagreements there.
So we experimented with how to properly readjust the color pie. The place this is most obvious is in white. For years, it was the 5th color in Commander, and we've spent years figuring out how to make white more viable in a way that's still white philosophically. This is the year that a lot of the work became public, and it's been great seeing the audience's reaction to it. So if you think that they've been trying to do stuff for white up until this year is really where it started shining through. The work isn't just on white, though, but the other colors are a little subtler. I do enjoy that the color pie, the foundation of the game, mechanically and creatively, can change along with the game.
Yeah, getting cards like Deep Gnome Terramancer and
Archivist of Ogma.
The Archivist of Ogma. Modern Horizons 2 gave us, what's the creature? Unless they pay X.
Esper Sentinel.
Esper Sentinel, and that didn't come out in a set, obviously, that we're going to talk about today. But we're certainly getting there. I think, White needs a couple of cards to keep them on track, even with the other colors.
Even Welcoming Vampire we got in sets this year, which is like what people... Maybe not a
much better
version.
Mentor of the Meek that everybody said thank you for.
Yeah, I was gonna try to tiptoe around that. Maybe not everyone thinks it's
Mentor
better,
of the Meek required a lot of mana.
It does,
and Mentor of the Meek doesn't. So
Welcoming Vampire doesn't.
What did I say?
Mentor of the Meek doesn't.
Mentor
does.
of the Meek does.
Vampire doesn't.
Welcoming Vampire doesn't. Yeah, I agree. I think, and I did it even in my human stack. I just recently was on a show talking about humans, and I don't run Mentor of the Meek in humans where I'm making 1/1 humans consistently. I run Mentor of the Meek because I never want to keep up 1 mana. I always want to do something different. And if that 1 extra mana is going into a creature whose power is low, I'm getting the card draw and a better creature than saving 1. So and the next one is that they adapted their design to the feedback of customers. This is part of adapting the game is understanding how the audience wants to play it. Magic has gone through a lot of changes over the last 10 years, and they're proud of the work that R&D has put into the understanding of what those changes mean and how they've been able to shift their design to meet those needs. And I think that that's fair. We've been asking for I think it kind of goes back to the previous bullet of just readjusting the color pie, because their primary format now, their premier format is Commander, and they need one of their colors to not just be non-existent. And
that's true.
I think I have hopes that we see more non-equipment decks in white blue. And I think that's from the sets we're going to talk about this week, I think that was pretty apparent.
Oh yes, very much so.
That's not all we're doing here. So that feels really good. But we have some lessons. They said they need to be more conscious about backwards compatibility. So they're designing for what they now call an eternal world, where the core of Magic play involves the full history of the game. Obviously, Commander has cards from every single set legal. It says this means that they need to be better about understanding how current designs play with older designs, and it's not enough to make something cool in a vacuum. They have to shape it in such a way that it complements what has come before. And this is probably the current force most likely to change the immediate future of design. So while our format being the premier format really depends on new cards impacting old cards, which I think is really interesting, because I build decks because of weird interactions with some card that came out in 2002, and it's like, what's that card? It's 6 cents. Well, it's broken now because of this new card that came out, and I love that. I am happy to hear that they are going to have to do this, because they didn't used to play test a lot of these things, and now they will. Because some of them will lead to bannings, like Lutri. We got a brand new card in Ikoria. It came out and was not legal in their premier format immediately.
Yeah,
before I would expect we don't have
card
that
in their hand. Yeah,
right. Before you ever had the card, it was banned before it physically reached stores. So I don't expect we would see that again.
No. Next lesson is we need to be careful with complexity. As a side effect of moving toward an eternal world, we've upped the amount of complexity we're allowing in each set. While I understand why we're doing it, I know we need to be vigilant to make sure we don't fall into old mistakes. A new player is always going to start the game from the same place. We must be careful not to leave them behind. And that's... honestly, this is one thing. I mean, as Commander players, it's the casual, like one of the most casual formats. You're not always trying to win every single game. In a 1v1 format, you are pretty much always trying to win. And you would think that the casual version of a game would be something where you would bring someone in to try to teach them the game. And in Magic, that's just not the case. Commander is the most complicated freaking format that we have. And so I am curious on, will there ever be an ability to make Commander the introduction game type for a Magic player to teach them how to play?
I think it does. I think this bullet point is speaking about things that may not have been delivered on, like double feature was
sure,
touted as a format that was going to feature cards from both Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow, and was not. It was all of them and not curated and super expensive.
Well, that's
so
true.
I think speaking to what the actual product is, may have fallen short on some of these sets. Like one of the ones that we're going to talk about in one of the downsides of the first set we're going to talk about. So let's move to Innistrad Midnight Hunt, the first set that came out over the last year. Highlights. The new mechanics were mostly popular. Decayed, Disturb, and Day and Night all had some fans. Players enjoyed how each of them took a mechanical theme they've done before and found new space to play in. Decayed had a surprising amount of depth and was flavorful for zombies. Disturb was a tweak on Aftermath and gave spirits a mechanic to focus on. And then Day and Night did a good job of extending the werewolf mechanic into an element that kind of affected the whole game. There was some criticism, though, that Day and Night was hard to track in tabletop, which is true, everybody. It's very hard. And that's coming from someone who plays the Celestis as a one-off card in multiple decks, and then also a Tovolar deck. So it's hard even when my deck is just doing that. And they said there was some discussion around whether it was supposed to go away if no cards on the table even cared about it. They said they spent a lot of time discussing it, and there were people who enjoyed how Coven cared about a new facet of the game, having multiple different powers among your creatures. But it got the most criticism of the new mechanics because it didn't really focus on humans. It just was kind of like, hey, have different powers.
Yeah.
So I actually really liked Midnight Hunt. I know I'm in the minority. I had a lot of fun drafting it. I would say I've never drafted a set more. I also heard, though, that it is one of the least liked draft sets of almost all time, mostly because it was heavily weighted in playing blue-black and nothing else, which I did. And I won a lot, so I liked it. Okay, I liked it. It was fun.
Was that the set with the giant slug that was printed in it? The Demir?
It was not. That is Crimson Vow.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yeah.
Blue black gets more support there.
Blue black gets more support there. Blue black doesn't even have the only legendary creature in blue black from Midnight Hunt is Ludwig Necrogenius.
Oh, okay.
There's no. It's mostly just. You played common and uncommon zombie cards and you crushed, and it wasn't close.
Yeah. Well, hey,
yeah.
Zombies be crushing.
They be crushing.
We also have the addition of witches and folk horror was appreciated. One of the challenges in doing an Innistrad set is touching upon the classic tropes of Gothic horror while also trying to add new horror elements to the plane. A lot of players enjoyed that Innistrad Midnight Hunt added a new thing to the mix. While the mechanic of the witches wasn't super popular, the flavor of them was. There was a lot of positive comments about the visual aesthetic of the set that came from this new element. And so that's the witches having the coven ability and being one of the major forces fighting against the vampires, trying to, cause an eternal night and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, my wallpaper on my laptop has been Leonore since the day that it came out. I think like the candles, we've seen it before with Machias, the original Machias, the mono white one, just like the candles in the woods that will definitely be starting a forest fire if they fall over, because it's like everything's getting dry at that point. And,
yeah, they don't have Smokey the Bear on Innistrad. They have Smokey the Werewolf, and
Smokey the Werewolf. Smokey the Werewolf. But I like the theme, and I did like the addition of witches. The next one is that the Revisitable Characters was enjoyed. So another highlight. One of the things players seem to enjoy about revisits, getting to see some old characters in new forms. Particularly, they got a lot of positive comments about Hal and Elena, and then also Arlen Court getting new cards. So we got an actual flip back and forth. Planeswalker with Arlen. And then Hal and Elena were characters that we had never actually seen previously, other than in a Commander. It was the original Commander Legends where we got them as individual partners. Now they are on a card together, and actually a very strong card. So it's also great seeing reprinted characters get other good cards that are going to see some play.
Yeah. And we also have players enjoyed the premiere of Multicolor Flashback and the new land cycle. Players enjoyed seeing Flashback return to Innistrad. It had been there for the first visit, but not the second, and liked the tweak of being multicolor Flashback cards. And the new, quote, slow lands started in Innistrad Midnight Hunt and completed in Crimson Vow were also a hit. And I think, those lands have become, quote unquote, auto includes for me when it comes to 2 and 3 color decks, and so that's probably
they're the best. They're the best lands from the last year.
They might be. I would say these are probably the best cards from this set for us as Commander players. Although we did get some pretty good legendary creatures in this set as well.
I would probably agree of the set. The lands are by far the best thing that we got, but aside from that, Tovolar was really a popular design for people getting that character back. So, lessons though, it says werewolves didn't get their due, and this is speaking to the their lesson learned about being conscious of how they speak to their products.
Yes.
So werewolves didn't get their due when they originally announced the set. They gave it a temporary placeholder name of Innistrad Werewolves. The set that set the expectation for a product more focused on werewolves than it ended up actually being. In addition, when compared to the other major creature types, players felt that they didn't get to shine as brightly as they could. Werewolves numbered fewer than other focused creature types, and they only had 1 legendary, although Tovolar, he says here, got very high marks, which it absolutely did. But it didn't really reflect werewolves showing up in black, and it was touted as adding werewolves in black. And it only got a revamp mechanic rather than something brand new. The wolves are supposed to be the werewolves' allies, and there weren't really any wolves. It was mostly werewolves. Mm-hmm. And then the werewolves were the only major creature type not to get an accompanying commander deck, which we did talk about, and it was a logistical nightmare is basically what they said, like having to print cards that are on front and back because they don't usually do that. And then where it requires like day-night trackers, it requires... it was too complicated. Yeah. So with a few exceptions, they weren't really strong, and they were also the worst draft archetype. Not a great showing for the quote unquote werewolf set. And that is true. You go to the vampire set, which we'll get to, and it was like, I don't even know how many legendary vampires we got, but I think it was at least 4. If not 5. Nope, I'm looking at it now. We actually got 6. So the vampire set got 6 legendary vampires. The werewolf set got 1 legendary werewolf, and it didn't make sense. But there was also a legendary vampire in this set.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I guess there was also. I mean, you had a planeswalker. You don't have a vampire planeswalker. Which I guess you could say, because we didn't get Sorin in either of these sets, right? Or did we get a Sorin? Did we get a Sorin?
We did. We got the Sorin that
oh my gosh.
The Mirthless.
Werewolves got screwed.
Yeah, werewolves really didn't get anything. And I'm not going to say that. They got Tovolar, but they unfortunately got Tovolar, which is the only werewolf commander that people will talk about.
Yes.
Because you can play the previous werewolf commander, but it doesn't do what Tovolar does, and Tovolar kind of keeps the game going. So werewolves didn't get their due, unfortunately, but we talked about that, and now we know it's a lesson. So if we go back to Innistrad for a 4th time, hopefully werewolves will get maybe a set where we get the other pack leaders, because there was a legendary. I know it wasn't legendary, but we got one on Magic Arena that was for a special. Was it one of their formats on Arena?
Some sort of alchemy, or
why couldn't we have gotten that in paper?
Well, this next lesson is one for us Eternal format players. Speaking of werewolves still, the day-night wasn't backwards compatible. So Tabletop's magic focus is broader than it's ever been, with players wanting to play new cards with old cards. The fact that the old werewolves and the new werewolves don't play smoothly together has seen as a big mistake. So the new werewolves transforming when the day-night mechanic switches, and the old werewolves transforming when someone either didn't cast a spell during their turn or cast 2 or more spells during their turn, not making those compatible, saying all of the old werewolves are now just day-night. Maybe there would be some logistical issues with that, some broken werewolves, if that you could just cast for the werewolf side or something like that. I think the Eldrazi werewolves I heard were like some of the biggest problems when it comes to that, but just
those you had to like pay for too. I don't know
Right.
how it worked exactly, but cards like Waxing Moon, where it just says transform a werewolf, or cards that flipped your werewolves and stuff, it does not flip the new werewolves.
right.
So it was difficult, and I will say, playing the deck myself, it is not always easy to remember which of my cards do the thing that I want them to do.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially when you can't read them. You can't read what the other side of it while they're out there, right?
Yeah. So the next one is the colors weren't of equal power and limited. So draft. The colors were not evenly balanced. White and blue and black being stronger than red and green. Unfortunately, red and green in the werewolf set was the worst thing you could draft. There was no reason to. Grab any terrible black and blue color card, and you will do fine. If you grab anything red and green, you're basically going to lose. Unless you get you can win. If you get Tovalar and you get 3 of the good uncommons, it's possible.
Sure.
But overall, don't do it. Just play blue-black zombies. And that was the main complaint with this set.
Yeah. And the last lesson we have here is double feature was a big miss. This isn't quite a design issue and isn't exactly about Innistrad Midnight Hunt, but it was one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got about Innistrad Midnight Hunt. Players believed double feature was unnecessary. They didn't like the black and white aesthetic, felt we misled the audience on what the contents were going to be, and were upset that it wasn't a crafted draft experience rather than just the 2 sets thrown together.
Yep.
I will say, yeah, my feelings are exactly in line with this, but I think the black and white artwork has grown on me a little bit.
I loved it from the beginning. I still love the black and white artwork. I wish it was less expensive. Double feature is ridiculously overpriced for what it is. It honestly, it would have been wonderful if double feature had just been the same price as a regular draft pack. Maybe a slight premium, but to buy one of those boxes, I know that I was talking to one of our LGSs who had to sell it for what they bought it for just to get it out the door. So they made $0 on double feature. I have a draft box. I bought singles. I bought a bunch of copies of the foil Celestis from double feature. I think the foils are wonderful, and I love the black and white cards from the set. I just wish the foils weren't such a premium. And I will say double feature has a major foil multiplier because it was so underopened, but I think it's because it was not marketed appropriately.
Yeah, agreed.
So moving on, Innistrad Crimson Vow highlights. The first one here is players appreciated having mechanics overlap between sets. So with the absence of blocks and no back-to-back sets on the same plane since War of the Spark, players appreciated they overlap some of the mechanics between Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow. In particular, they liked that the Disturb mechanic evolved between sets. So before it was like a human, and then it came back as a spirit, and then it was like a spirit that came back as like an enchantment.
Yeah.
So Disturb's cool. Appreciated that.
Yeah, really liked it a lot personally as well. Blood was appreciated mechanically. I wanted to make sure I put a pause between there. R&D has been designing more artifact tokens of late, and blood tokens were the latest addition to that trend. The majority opinions seem to be blood tokens played well and helped with deck smoothing. The biggest complaint about blood tokens was about the flavor, which didn't seem like as big of a slam dunk as clues, treasure, and food tokens has been. I think I play blood tokens in only my Jeskai Blink deck, and it's nice to be able to loot with those things, or maybe use them as a token that you're just going to destroy to a Thrill of Possibility. No, that's not the right card. The one that you can sacrifice permanents that you control and find brand new cards on the top of your deck. Polymorph like effects.
Yeah, blood is now considered an evergreen, I believe is what they had said a couple of months ago. But they said blood can be used anywhere now. I don't, unless if I have it in a deck, it's because some card that works well with my deck just generically probably just makes a blood. I don't know if I have any cards. You don't have any decks.
You don't have the new Odric that's making blood tokens all the time or anything like that.
No, and I'm not running, Anji Maid of Dishonor. That one has when a vampire enters, you make a blood token. I want to put Edgar back together, and I picked up the foil double feature version of Anya Maid of Dishonor, which makes a lot of blood tokens. I've played against Anya, the new one, and it's cool. I just don't have anything, and I'm not playing the Strefan Commander Precon. That one cares about blood tokens, and that one's really cool. I think it just works really well so far with what's come out with some vampires. The next one here is the only one that I think that I disagree with. A highlight is the Dracula cards were well received. So they said for the first time since Ikoria, Lair of Behemoths and Godzilla cards, they did another overlay IP series. This time it was Dracula, and they got a lot of positive feedback from players who enjoyed the book, and they felt they did a good job finding appropriate cards of the book's characters and settings. I'm not too close or familiar with Dracula. I didn't like the overlay for Ikoria. I'm not a fan of the overlay for this. I much prefer the in lore, in story, in magic setting cards. That's just me.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I like it when I do like extended universe cards, but I like them to be standalone extended universe cards rather than just the overlay, like we said.
Sure.
The wedding theme was fun. Totally agree with this. As with any feedback, the audience doesn't always agree. Some players adored the wedding theme of the set and loved the numerous top-down cards it allowed. They also liked the general look of the set that helped give it distinct identity separate from the other 6 expansion sets on Innistrad. It did feel very, very different where the focus was this wedding. And I did enjoy the wedding theme myself.
I did, and I didn't really feel like there was any issue with that. Moving on to lessons, because this first bullet point here, I feel like is very much related to the one you just went over as a highlight, which was that people said they didn't feel like it was a horror setting. So others felt that the wedding took over the set and distracted from the gothic horror feel they associate with the plane. The tone was more celebratory than scary, and a lot of fans of the plane didn't really feel like it was the plane they had fallen in love with, which might be similar to like the Battle for Zendikar of Zendikar, which was focusing on only Eldrazi and not on the adventure aspect. I didn't mind it because this one felt very much like Ravnica. I know that they say we don't do 2-block sets, but this one here we were on the same set for it felt like 2-block, which is fine to me. I had no issue with that. I appreciated it, but for the Innistrad diehards, I can see this.
Hey, if you were a human at that wedding party, it would feel like a gothic horror.
I wouldn't have gone. I also
you might not
feel
have
like
a choice.
I wouldn't have been invited. Sorry, I can't make that drive. It's too far up that scary winding mountain.
Yeah, I'm going to drive the opposite direction, actually, at double the pace. Training, Cleave, and Exploit were more miss than hit. Both Training and Cleave didn't feel particularly suited to the overall flavor of the set. Training was set as being kind of dull, or seen as being kind of dull. Cleave was hard to process. Exploit sadly reminded players that the decayed mechanic that they'd joined in Innistrad Midnight Hunt didn't return. It wasn't that any of these mechanics played poorly, they just didn't seem to enhance the set for many players. And I'll be honest, I think there's like one card with Cleave, the Wash Away counterspell, and other than that, I don't know if I play with any of these particular keywords in any of my commander decks.
They are, Cleave is kicker. That's all it is.
Everything's kicker. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you get one thing if you pay this cost, you get a different thing if you pay this cost. It was just very confusing because it was like, here, read this whole sentence, and if you don't pay enough, you don't get the whole sentence, or you remove words from the sentence? It was a lot. It was, but training, I agree, is maybe difficult from our aspect of Commander. I'm not sure how training plays in Cube or in just regular draft or in Modern. I don't know how it is in a more limited format. But training is difficult because you have to swing to do something.
Right.
And if it's not the right time or someone doesn't have something open, you're going to swing with the creature and then maybe get some minimal benefit off of your training and not do a whole lot.
Right.
And it was unfortunate. Exploit is cool. Exploit is great, but they didn't carry over the decayed mechanic to get that zombie token. And then in the double feature, it was just all of them.
Yeah.
So I feel like if it had been a curated draft format, they could have relied more on exploit and decayed. So
right.
Unfortunate there. The next is limited format was too bomby. There were several rares and mythic rares that weren't strong enough to see competitive play, but had a big impact on limited that led to too many games being lost to the opponent drawing a particular card. I do remember this. I did not like drafting Crimson Vow. I think I did it 2 or 3 times. I remember losing to like a Catilda Dawnheart Martyr. If someone had like Olivia Crimson Bride, you basically just died to that. And I think the biggest bomb, if I remember correctly, was Avabrook Caretaker. So it was the hexproof werewolf that puts counters on creatures you control, and then other permanents you control have hexproof if you flip to the Nightbound side. So yeah, it was very bomby. It is what it is. I think they call that a Prince. There's like Prince and Pauper, and like the Pauper format is where you can play with a lot of cards, and the Prince format is like all fancy rares and mythics, and this is definitely a Prince format for Crimson Vow.
Okay. That's interesting, given this next point of the vampires needed to be better. So you would think that in a bomb format, the vampire bomb format, that you would have a lot of really strong vampires. Maybe that would be for our eternal formats. But this complains that vampires needed to be better. Vampires didn't have the quantity problem that werewolves had in Innistrad Midnight Hunt, but they did have a quality problem. The vampires were overall on the weak side and didn't give the players as much to build around in constructed formats, especially Commander, as vampire fans had hoped. The 2 biggest complaints were a lot of dissatisfaction with Odric, as he was a popular character with a mostly unplayable card, and the absence of a 3-color legendary vampire. So yeah, no 3-color Edgar Markov. Everything was 2-color. We had a black-white Edgar, and most of the other legendary vampires were black-red. And with one red-white vampire with Odric in there as well, which no one, I haven't seen an Odric deck out there. I'm sure people have it. I'm sure someone's found a way to make it a powerful commander deck out there with all the token generations. You get the keyword soup, but keyword soup has always been Odric's thing. It didn't feel new, and
No, we still have the original Edgar as the best vampire commander, as one has been told. I don't play vampires that often, so I see that. The next set is Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Some highlights was that it was the home run set of the year, and players enjoyed the core conflict of tradition versus modernity. I think it was the most popular set of this past year, and I think they did a good job of bringing back what people wanted from Kamigawa of the past, and then making it different, because the Kamigawa of the past was like one of the worst received sets of all time, and had one of I think the biggest fallouts of people playing, because they really did not enjoy it.
Right. And speaking of which, like the throwback references that were in there were adored. The set made a lot of references to the original Kamigawa block, and it was eaten up by the fans who had been long wanting to return. It was clear that all of us making the set had as much reverence for the plane as its biggest fans, and those were mostly seen, in my opinion, from the sagas that were referencing some of those old legendary creatures turned into some sort of creature version of it in the end. And really cool. Just we didn't get my She-Ray card, but that's okay.
You didn't? Well, we got to see, I think there was a card that referenced it, but it wasn't an actual She-Ray.
Right.
I think there was something, but it was a set that I did not draft, but one of the highlights was that it was a very fun draft set. I wish I had drafted it some more. It was just that it was after the new year, and it was a very busy time, so I didn't have time to draft it on Arena. And then they said the mechanics were very beloved. People got to play with ninjas, and they got to play with shrines, and it was a lot of cool stuff, and people liked Reconfigure and the Saga creatures. The one downside, I will say, one of our friends, Andy Bentley from Commander's Forge, was not thrilled with the Samurai and Warriors, which I think I think was the case with most. They wish that we had gotten some more. But ninjas and rogues came back with ninjutsu, and that was very cool. And then channel, amazing mechanic. I would love to see it again. So slam dunk.
Yeah, absolutely. There was also an introduction to Cyberpunk here for I'll say the first time. Maybe Urza's Saga could be considered a little cyberpunky as well, but most of the players like the execution of Cyberpunk in Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, really pushed the envelope. And again, you see those references conflicting against the modernity, or the natural or nature versus modern, the spirit world versus the cyberpunk aspect, and actually the combination of the two, which felt really cool. And there was much love for a lot of the Japanese versions of cards. So they brought in famous Japanese artists that make artwork for manga and stuff like that. And those particular artworks were very, very highly liked in the community.
Wait. I'm stuck on Urza Saga being cyberpunk.
Well, because Urza turns himself into he's got his power suit and stuff, and he has his power armor. I mean, Urza's he makes machines. I mean, he made Karn and everything, and maybe the punk part is missing from that, and he's just cyber.
Maybe he's just cyber. I'm not seeing cyberpunk. But for the lessons, they said that they were sad that they were only on Kamigawa for one set. People wanted to see it more. I got very lucky when we moved to this one block format. It was with Guilds of Ravnica, and then we went to the Ravnica Legions, and then we did War of the Sparks. We were in Ravnica for 3 sets, so they weren't on it 3 times for this. And then it didn't always bring back the same elements that everybody wanted. They had challenges of revisiting the plane. They said they had a significant number of new things, which meant things just had to be left out. There weren't a ton of spirits. People wanted to see more Kami, or this included seeing more Kami, but others wanted Arcane to return. So I think it's just tough with returning. You can't make everybody happy, but I think everybody did enjoy a few things.
Yes. One complaint is it wasn't always clear whether permanent that you had was a creature, an enchantment, or an artifact. So we had these flip sagas. We had reconfigure equipments that were creatures when they weren't attached to things, and that could cause a little bit of confusion. And to go along with that, complexity was a tad high. There's a lot going on in this set, and some players felt it was a little too much. This is the flip side of the positive note about all the draft archetypes, but most of the time, death comes with complexity.
Yeah, and players were not happy with the samurai mechanical identity is a specific bullet point here. They said that the samurai fans did not feel that the exalted mechanical identity was a good fit for samurai. It didn't synergize well with all the old samurai, which was a feel bad. But the one positive comment is that they did like the batching of samurai and warriors because it provided more options for samurai deck builds. Moving on, Streets of New Capenna. Highlights. Players were excited to see the return of a 3-color set. The family mechanics were well liked. There were a lot of cool individual designs, and fans enjoyed the look and feel of the plane. And I think this is all true. They said that the 3-color set, the last time we saw one was a Coriolis or Behemoth, but honestly, I didn't even realize that was a 3-color set until they had to explain that, because mostly of the 3-color that we talk about there are the triomes. Mm-hmm. But I played during Cons of Tarkir, which is a 3-color set, and that one was wonderful, which is what I was hoping we would get with Streets of New Capenna. And I think that they got there with it truly being a 3-color set. The family mechanics were interesting. Blitz is cool. Connive and Casualty is really fun. And then the creature fall mechanic that came with the Cabaretti of Alliance, that was nice. Yeah, that we now have that. And then lots of cool designs, and the feel of the plane was nice.
Yeah, this is absolutely my favorite set of the year, specifically for those 3-color legendary creatures that we got and the decks that were built around them. And I didn't really care about the feel of the plane, but it was pretty cool to see. If it had taken place on another plane, I'd still be impressed. I love my 3-color commanders. So some lessons that we learned from this set is the plane was a little one note and the factions weren't distinct enough. So the different crime families that we had all kind of seemed not too different from each other because they were all crime families led by a demon. There were some definitely mechanical differences between the two, but the differences thematically weren't really super clear. There were issues with draft. So some monocolor commons were just too strong and making the draft format a little too aggressive. and 2-color decks were more viable than 3-color decks, even though this set was designed to be a 3-color set.
Yeah, this is where I would say the brokers, which is the Bant colors of white, green, and blue, was by far the best. It was very much a Midnight Hunt feel of that blue black being you just win if you do it. This is the brokers, because shield counters are just so good. And then also there is a 2/1 white flyer, and I cannot for the life of me remember it. Inspiring Overseer.
Okay.
It's an angel for 2 and a white. And it has, when it enters the battlefield, you gain a life and draw a card, and it's just a flyer. So you draft literally, that was better than drafting many mythics.
Okay.
So if you got like 4 of that, like you were a shoo-in for the win. So you drafted 2-color decks, and then you would splash the 3rd color. So what I usually did was I would draft green-white, because there's a lot of green-white stuff, and then you splash blue. And if you get the broker's ascendancy, you just win. So that's kind of how that went. So it was some major issues with draft.
Yeah. There were some creative elements that weren't explained well, and this is one that I was personally confused about as well. The best example here is with the angels. At the beginning, we learned that the angels were driven from the city years ago, so it was surprising when so many angels showed up in the set. And that was because the end of the story led to the angels coming back, but not enough players were aware of that, so the set seemed to be contradicting what they knew of the story. So we said, oh, the angels are gone, and that's what the magical dust
Halo came from.
That's where Halo came from. So there's no more angels because
ground up angels.
But at the same time, the angels were back. So it's like, oh, well, some of them survived getting ground up? ? And if you do read all the way to the end of the story,
herbs.
we do find that out. And the last complaint here, the last lesson learned, I should say, is that the tricolored lands should have been called the triomes. You know what? You could call them triomes still. I still call them triomes.
The Bant triome.
It's just the triomes.
Instead of Zeotora's Proving Grounds, we call it the Jund triome.
Yeah, or you could call it Zeotora's triome if you really want to stick.
You actually could Rafine's triome, but then you have to remember that Rafine is Esper and is not the Bant one, which is Falco.
Falco, yeah, Falco Punch.
Falco Punch. Moving on to the final set from the past year, which was Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. So the highlights: the set had a lot of flavorful top-down D&D designs. We drafted this, and it was they said that they got a lot of feedback, that it was a lot of fun. He says he talked about the original Commander Legends, and one of the lessons is that there was room for improvement in draft. Player consensus is that the design team did a great job of understanding what needed to be fixed and then fixing it. So drafting was fun. I think I learned in our first draft, I just needed to have some flyers and I would have been fine. Unfortunately, what we learned was it was just drafting dragons was the right thing, at least with the packs that we had opened, because we had two players on dragons and it wasn't close. You and I felt like we had to do a lot of work to mess with the dragon players to get there. And then the commander designs were original and accounted for a lot of feedback from commander players. They said they heard from players to stop designing commanders that usurp existing commanders in existing decks and start making ones that force players to build something new. So, Tovolar just replaced an old commander. If you were playing some sort of werewolf deck, the Tovolar is just now the werewolf commander. So maybe when we go back, we can get multiple green red legendary werewolves, so kind of like that. And then they said players enjoyed a lot of the mechanical execution. Backgrounds were a general hit, and players were excited to see adventures in a D&D set. They got a lot of compliments about initiative, which I like. I do like initiative a lot, but all I know is the first one is you get to kind of a cultivate like effect and go grab yourself a basic, so that's cool. And then they enjoyed a lot of synergy between a lot of their themes.
Yeah, although I did say Streets of New Capenna was my favorite set, this set actually has my most decks built from this year. I have 4 different background decks built. With at least a 5th or 6th on the way.
It's a lot of writing I'm preparing to do.
I think honestly, like if I were to make my own bullet point here, it would be I think they got partner right this time. Because I really, really like the different, like, I know partners is different. You get 2 different creatures and stuff, but I really like the, add a color to this monocolored legendary creature and you get an extra benefit. I really think they knocked it out of the park there. So some lessons learned from Baldur's Gate. It shouldn't have been labeled as Commander Legends. People were expecting some really high priority reprints in Commander Legends because it's called Commander, or for the Commander format, because it's called Commander Legends. And they felt slighted because immediately afterwards you get Double Masters 2022 with all of those cards that we needed printed for the Commander set. So people may be pre-ordering all of their Baldur's Gate ahead of time, hoping that, I'm going to get my Dockside Extortionist and my Imperial Seal in here. And nope, not the case. But we'll get it in Double Masters. So it felt more like Dungeons and Dragons Adventures in Forgotten Realms 2 than it did Commander Legends 2.
Both of these sets you can get for well under a price you would have pre-ordered for. So there is that benefit. If you're looking to pick this product up now, many LGSs have them for like $80.
Which and it's a very good draft format.
Very fun to draft. I would say pick up singles of the cards you need, but if you want to draft it, pick up a box.
Yes, a couple more lessons. They didn't have many magic callouts, especially in the legendary creatures, the commanders and the planeswalkers. And again, that's because this was a Dungeons and Dragons themed IP set. So they focused on well, not even focused. They ignored the magic universe just to make sure that they put all of these Dungeons and Dragons characters and creatures in there. So something that maybe they would expect in a set like Commander Legends, where there isn't many opportunities to see some of those new cards printed there, but hopefully people are happily looking at Dominaria United and seeing some of those older creatures we're going to get new cards of those. And the last point here is there wasn't much mechanical innovation. So mostly brought back old mechanics, which some people actually liked the old mechanics that were brought back. Adventure was brought back into this set as well, and people love to see an Adventure Commander in the Bant colors. But there wasn't anything new, nothing totally exciting. Even, the new mechanic of Initiative was really adventuring with a twist. So they wanted something new here.
Yeah, I think my favorite of now that I've built some decks with cards from Commander Legends, I think the precons knocked it out of the park, and I think that I would, if I had added a bullet point here, I would add that I feel like the commanders and the alternate commander with the background are some of the most popular, like
yes.
Folk Hero, Barakos, Passionate Archaeologist, and Durnan, and then Baloth Baratal is super duper popular, and Hunted One. So it would have been nice to maybe have some of those more mythic options in the set, as opposed to only an alternate option in the commander precons. But I have not played against dice rolling more in my life, both yours and with everybody else at the LGS. And I will tell you, if you have Delina and Will on the board, I am removing your stuff, because statistically, I'm not going to get another turn once you start rolling dice and making copies and doing things. So I learned that from you. That is statistically probable that it will never be a failed die roll.
Yep.
And then add more things like your fairy that does things. I know what these dice rolling cards are now, because everybody's rolling dice to smash my face. And that was it. That was the year. He says that's the end of this year's column. And as always, the goal is to try and look back with an honest understanding of how their work is received by the audience. I thought it was a great bunch of sets, honestly. I think I like Midnight Hunt and Crimson Vow a lot more than most people. I built a lot of commander decks between those two sets. I actually have 2 commander decks with one commander from Midnight Hunt being Jaren Corrupted Bishop.
Oh yeah.
And Kamigawa Neon Dynasty was great. I love when you have a commander that it just works. I play Satsuki Living Lore because it's just a Sagas deck. I thought that was really fun. But I've also been crushed by plenty of commanders from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. I think we're getting to the point where we're seeing the effect of designing for commander be a priority here.
Yes.
So Satoru Umezawa for ninjas is really good. Light Paws is just kind of broken. Light Paws Emperor's Voice. It doesn't matter who's playing it, whether it's mine or I'm playing against one. It falls in that threshold between this is maybe it's just a high power deck. It's too high for a super casual pod, and it hangs out with the best of the best.
We even got like Goshen Tai in the set booster exclusive card, but for commander, a shrine commander, 5-color shrine commander that really cares about shrines.
Yeah.
and even in Streets of New Capenna, I had you see a bunch of decks of people building the demon mafia lords. I know I have my Rafine deck, and I think you have it as Ginny Fey and not Jetmir, but I imagine you have Jetmir in your Ginny Fey deck.
I do. I put a little Jetmir in my Ginny Fey. I didn't put Ginny Fey in the Jetmir.
Yes.
I did it the opposite way. Although I've lost to a Jetmir deck, and now I like how the Jetmir decks are built too. Honestly, I could probably switch them out, but Ginny Fey is more going for the haste creatures versus a plethora of creatures, whereas Jetmir likes just a bunch.
And you had mentioned earlier that you liked the Commander Precon decks that came out with Legends for Baldur's Gate. I really like the Commander Precon decks that came out with Streets of New Capenna. I think Henzi just and you have Beamtown Bullies. I think those are some of the best Commander designed legendary creatures I've seen. Like I was that Precon might be my favorite Precon of all time.
Of all time?
Of all time. All time.
I think I still like Jarina Kudra more.
Okay.
But that's
fair.
just me.
That's fair.
Playing with some humans, playing with some tokens, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
She's the best human commander ever.
However, the more sets that come out, we're going to get more commander decks that are more powerful. So, I'm curious to see how your opinion changes. But that's going to be it for this week, everybody. If you want to find me online to chat, you can find me on Twitter at Andy Fleury.
And you can find me on Twitter at Wormcoil Engine. And we want to thank you all for listening. And we'll catch you next time.